Hey friends, it's Will. Today I'm making the most complicated item I think I've ever attempted. Something I've dreamed of making for quite literally years, and I finally get to bring it to life thanks to my friends at Leatherbox, who have very kindly sponsored this video. More about them later, so let's dive straight in and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So in this video I'm using Nova Nappa. If you've been watching this channel for a little while, you know that I am an enormous fan of this leather, and Leatherbox did send it over to me to make this video, hence why I could not do it without them. I love this leather. It is an absolute nightmare to work with when you don't know what you're doing, but today I'm going to teach you exactly how to do it. It's really soft, but because it's very soft, it ages beautifully. So I've had this split down to 1.2 millimeters, which obviously it does not come from the tannery at 1.2 millimeters. So it's been split down for me. And you have to use a really sharp knife with it, because it's so soft that if you use a knife that is not really sharp, it will just ruck up a little bit. It will get a little bit wavy, which obviously you don't want. So I'm going to be using my Japanese knife, and Leatherbox do sell Japanese knives. There will be a link to those in the video description as well. And the reason this is so complicated is because there's something called order of operations. Now, it's very commonly used, this terminology, in machining and manufacturing. But it's how you're able to make things that are really complicated. And for this, the order of operations was incredibly important, because you have to attach the front pocket before you've attached all of the lining. You have to attach the front panel of the lining, followed by the front panel, the exterior front panel I'm talking about. And then after you've done the exterior front panel, because that stitches underneath the lining, which I'll show you in a minute. But I have wanted one of these bags for a very long time, as I said in the intro. The other really important thing to remember is that when you're working with an untreated leather, because Nova Nappa is not treated, so they obviously tan it, turning it from a skin into a leather, and then they dye it, giving it a colour. In this case it's gold Nova Nappa, but then they don't put any sealant on it. And a lot of leathers don't have sealant, a lot of veg tan leathers don't have sealant, but this is not a veg tan leather. This is a semi-veg tan leather, so they chrome it and they veg it. So when you're touching it, basically you need to touch it as little as physically possible. Yes, you can get marks off it, but why put marks on if you don't need to? For the past 2 years, I have been looking for a brand to partner with who fits this channel and the community we have built together. Importantly, Leatherbox cater to both hobbyists and professional leather workers, which is so important considering that this channel has both professionals, or people who want to become professional, and hobbyists. Because a hobbyist does not want to buy an entire skin of leather. You might want to dip your toe in and buy a panel, which these guys do, of some of the best leathers in the world. They started out in the Netherlands, and since 2024 they've been supplying fantastic materials to the US too. They're also shipping to the UK VAT registered. So if you're in Europe, that means no more Brexit headache, fast delivery, and no surprise import fees. You literally put the stuff in your basket, click buy, and a few days later it arrives. It is fantastic. I think when they sent me some stuff recently, it took like 2 days to get here. I haven't got a single import fee since. So why Leatherbox exactly? We're talking next level materials, YKK Exceller zippers, which I'm going to be trying on my new zipper window pocket tutorial video. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss that. Beautiful threads, the same Misi that I've been using for years, and now you guys can get it too with my link in the description box below. Hardware and tools. Every little detail, maker could possibly want. They're constantly sourcing the most unique leathers, like a fish leather from Iceland. I've never even heard of that, and I believe they're going to send me some for a future video. And super high-end stuff like the Nova Nappa I'm using in this build. You can buy some for yourself, so you can make all of the same stuff that I make using my link in the video description. Just head to their website or check them out on Instagram. You'll see exactly what I mean and why I'm so excited for this partnership. And as a way to show their support for this channel and the phenomenal community we have built together, they've given me a €5 voucher code for your first order. And trust me, this is more than likely just the beginning of what we'll be doing together. So without further ado, let's get back to the video. Let's get back to it. So I forgot to film putting the holes in this front panel, and I forgot to film putting the backing on it. For the backing, because Nova Nappa is so soft, and I wanted to give it a little bit of body without any rigidity, if I laminated it to, let's say, bonded leather, it would have been really stiff. And I did do a trial of this to see what it would be like if I had laminated it to a bonded leather, and it was just a little bit too stiff. So I laminated it to some microfiber, and I believe Leatherbox do sell microfiber. If they do, there'll be a link under the video for that. But it just gives it a little bit more body. You'll probably ask me, well, why split it if you're then going to rebuild it with another material? And in this case, I'm doing that because when you laminate something, think about two pieces of paper. If you have two pieces of paper that are stuck together, it will have a different feel to a thicker piece of paper. So I wanted this to have a little bit more body than a slightly thicker Nova Nappa, but I also wanted to keep it really light. And microfiber is a really light fabric, so it gives it that body, but it keeps it light. And it also means that it doesn't get really rigid. One of the things about using hardware on any leather that you can feel through, and basically every leather that you can feel through, every leather you can feel through more or less, I decided to put a little bit of bonded leather on the back of it, so that when you feel next to the front lock, all you feel is that transition. You basically don't feel anything. For the lining, I'm using a French goat skin. This is probably my favorite color. It's called Lalousie, I believe. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's what it's called. Why did I put a T on it? Well, goat skins are quite small, and I wanted the lining to not have the sort of ripples and things from the bottom of and the top of the skin. So I lined it up so that the top of the pocket would actually be the middle of the skin, so that I don't have any of the sort of ripples at the edge of the skin, and they will be there, but they're at the bottom of the pocket, so that when you open the pocket, you only see the best parts of the leather. Now, this was difficult. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that I absolutely despise fully laminating a lining to the exterior leather. If you're going to be making something this beautiful, or if you're going to be selling something this beautiful, you want to be able to repair it in 10 years, if you're still going, when your client comes back to you and says I've got an ink stain on my lining, or whatever it might be, or scratched it or something. You want to be able to unpick those stitches, unpeel the border, the perimeter of your lining, and put a new one on. And if you've fully laminated your lining, you won't be able to do that. It's just one piece at that point. Especially with modern glues, you just won't be able to do that. Now, this is the exterior piece of the entire bag. Well, it's the exterior piece of the back at the bottom and the flap. Obviously, the exterior piece of the front is the pocket we've just made. But for this, the inner structure in this bag is kind of ridiculous. So to give it that structure, the structure that you'll see at the end, if you stay to the end, which I pray that you do, obviously, not just for retention reasons, but because I'm making this bag to show you. But the inner structure of this flap is really, really important, because there'll be a lock panel on the part that I'm putting on now, so it needs to have the structure to hold that lock panel in place, but also it needs to have the structure to keep it looking like a front panel, because if you don't have that structure, it'll just be a floppy thing on the front. That's all it'll be. So the next step is to put bonded leather on the back panel. Now, the bonded leather I'm using on the back is a 0.8 millimeter. Normally, I don't like using 0.8. I find it a little bit too rigid. But the back panel is where most of the framework of this bag comes from. You're stitching the gussets to it, you're stitching the back to it, the whole thing kind of hinges around the structure of the back panel. So if I was using, let's say, a 0.6 millimeter, which is my preference, it would have a little bit of structure, yes, because bonded leather has a bit of structure, but more to the point, it would be a little bit more floppy. And I want the front of this bag to have that fluidity to it, but I want the back of it to have a structure. And now this is a beautiful illustration of what you can do if you modify how you're building your item. So for the front, I'm actually using goat split. So I'm not using bonded leather for the front. I want it to be flexible enough for me to open the bag nice and wide, but not too rigid, so not too flexible where it would just sort of flop about in the wind, basically. And now we're getting on to gluing on a curve. I'm going to do an entire dedicated video on how to glue on a curve, because you can do so much with it. But for this, when you're bending something into shape, there's two ways of doing it really. You can either bend it and hope and essentially stretch the leather into the shape, or you can use a lamination technique, which is what I'm doing. I'm using that very, very thin leather goat split. It is very, very thin. I think it was 0.5 millimeters. Really, really thin. But enough to give it a little bit of body, enough to give it a little bit of structure, but not too rigid, but also enough to give me some framework that I can use to glue it on a curve, so I can get that nice rounded shape on the bottom without it staying in that position for eternity, because I want it to age with me. I'm going to be using this bag on a daily basis. This is my bag. This is not a client's bag. Now, you just saw me do this exact same technique with these gussets, because when you're bending those round into a curve to create that gusset shape, if you're doing that with them flat, it'll just create wrinkles in it. Now, that's because this is a smooth leather. If this was a grained leather, you could do it a different way, but because smooth leathers, when you bend them with rigidity behind them, you get wrinkles. If you curve them, so you get the same bend, but if you curve them and then glue them into that curve, they don't get nearly as wrinkled. Now, I forgot to film most of this part. This is putting the D-rings on the under part of that, the flap. Do I intend to use this with a shoulder strap? No. Do I want the option at some point in my life to use this with a shoulder strap? Yes. And that's the brilliant thing about making something yourself. And the white stuff, by the way, is non-stretch tape, because if I put anything in this and there's any weight to it, I don't want it to stretch the leather. But anyway, I'm making this for the future. Essentially, I'm going forward in time, thinking, okay, I might want to use this at some point with a shoulder strap, or maybe even attach it to my bicycle, who knows. But I can't do that without D-rings. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to use them for now, but that doesn't stop me from putting them on for future use. And this is exactly the same process we're doing for, this is the really complicated part we're doing for the front panel, the front pocket that you saw me make at the beginning of the video, because hopefully you're still watching this video, otherwise I'm ranting to myself in my studio. But anyway, We're going to put holes at the bottom of the front panel because we're about to glue it to the main body, because the main body front becomes the interior of the front pocket, if you're following what I'm talking about. And no, I didn't show you stitching every single one of those little holes, because that would have taken 3 million years and you would have gotten bored, let's be honest. This pattern required this to be glued on multiple curves. So the front curves over the back, but the sides of the front curve round to give it a really beautiful shape. So I've glued just the front of the lining on. And I'm obviously going to be stitching this with an awl, because I don't want to stitch it. I don't want to punch all the way through and risk punching a hole in the lining. So I'm using my Jerome David, or David Jerome. I don't actually know which way around it's pronounced, but there will be a link to the awl that I use in the video description. Again, from Leatherbox, the sponsor of this video. Thank you so much again to Leatherbox. But that's it. It is really weird because you stitch it to the lining and the, in my case, goat skin reinforcement underneath, goat skin split reinforcement underneath, and then you put the lining on top. It's really interesting how this bag was designed. Obviously, I did not design this bag. This bag was designed by Hermes. It's called their Depoche, I believe, and someone's gonna destroy me in the comments for the pronunciation of that. But it's basically my favorite personal shaped bag. I really like making a couple of their different bags, and I have a video of making my version of a Kelly, and that's coming out in the near future, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss that. It's going to be an epic video. I've done some really crazy things to the design, so make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss that. Because there are so many layers to this bag, and there are a lot of layers to this bag, it's important that any part that you're not going to see is skived off. Otherwise, these edges that you're seeing right now would be about 8 meters thick, because there are so many bloody layers in this, it's ridiculous. Now the thread I'm using throughout this is exactly the same, because for thinner projects I use an M50, but for thinner projects like this or a watch strap or a wallet I use an M40, and that's a Misi thread, and there's a link to that in the video description, so you can go pick some up for yourself. It's the Leatherbox sells it, and they sent it over for me to use in this build. I just absolutely love this bag, and I think you can tell from my excitement of making it that I absolutely love this bag. Now this leather, because it is so soft, well, not because it's so soft, as well as it being so soft, is really, really absorbent. So you just saw me put some leather sealant on it, because if you don't use a sealant on a very soft leather, you will be there for a millennium trying to get rid of the crack in the middle. The butt crack of the edge will be there until the day you die, unless you either put sealant on it or put a really thick layer of paint and then heat the living daylights out of it. Now, I only learnt to do this technique called pelage in the last couple of months, and let me tell you, it's really bloody difficult. I know this is not another spot for Leatherbox, don't worry. I got this hardware from another location, but it's really hard, and it took maybe 8 or 9 of those plates to actually perfect doing it. But I can do a video of how to do a pelage to put basically riveting tiny nails is essentially what it is, but the French call it fancy stuff because the French call everything fancy stuff. But if you'd like me to do a video on how to do pelage, please do leave a comment down below, and I will do one if I get enough interest. This bag took literally like a week to make. Not because I'm slow, but because of how complicated it is to build, and I absolutely loved building this. But we are basically done at this stage. All we have to do is stitch on the gusset, which again I glued on a curve, and you can see it's staying in that nice curve. I didn't show all of the internals of this bag, not because I didn't want to, but because I lost a lot of my footage, unfortunately. So there's another piece of bonded leather on that flap, which unfortunately I didn't show you. But all it was a little strip of bonded leather to give the top of the flap a bit of reinforcement, so that when you open it, it likes to be closed essentially, just to give it a little bit more shape. This edge was the bane of my existence. I think it took me about 10 coats of paint after 3 coats of filler to actually get it flat, and that was not fun. One of the reasons being is that my machine sander is at another location. My parents are looking after it because my studio is not big enough, unfortunately. But if you have access to a belt sander, it will not take you nearly as many years to paint your edge. Also, if you live in or ever plan on visiting the Netherlands, keep an eye out. Leatherbox organises masterclasses where passionate makers get to meet, share techniques, and you never know, I might be going out there in the near future to do one of these masterclasses myself. Who knows? Let's give the edges a little bit of a polish. I set my creaser to a 6 or a 60 if you're using a adrenaline creaser, which I am not using for this, unfortunately, because it had another head on it, and I was too lazy to actually change it, so that's my bad. But this is one of the other creasers that I have, and that is it. That is the masterpiece that has took me over a week to make. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Have a phenomenal week. Take care, guys.